Wouldn't you want a cabin like this, where a blizzard rages outside, but inside, it's as warm as spring? Hungry? Steaks are on the menu. Tired? The loft is waiting. Bored? There's always a good book, or a loyal dog to play with. This is turning wilderness survival into a masterclass. Meet Sean, not yet 40, a working man who felt like he'd hit the end of the road. So he made a radical decision: to return to the embrace of nature and build his very own log cabin from scratch. To gather logs strong enough for the task, Sean had a strict rule: only harvest massive 100-year-old trees. Once felled, the real work began. Each log was trimmed, stripped of its branches, with only the prime trunk remaining. Then the bark was peeled away, revealing a smooth, bare surface, the mark of a job well done. This meticulous selection process made the time fly. He started in the early winter, and by the time he was done, the spring flowers were blooming. Then came another 3 months, just waiting for the logs to air dry. If building in the wild is like cooking a gourmet meal, then preparing the logs is the essential prep work. So Chef Sean decided to process his ingredients right on site. A traditionalist at heart, he refused modern power tools, opting for pure, old-school hand craftsmanship. Using the ancient technique of scribing and saddle notching, he carved each log to fit perfectly into the one below it, creating a seamless, interlocking frame. During this process, he didn't just use a compass to keep his tolerances within millimeters. He also put a clear label on every single log. That way, once they were transported to the homestead, he could reassemble them quickly, like a giant, pre-fitted puzzle. And look at the physique on Sean, a testament to the work. He could probably out-hustle 99% of the guys at your local gym. With all that prep work done, assembling the walls was a smooth, methodical process. It wasn't about fancy tricks. It was about stacking them, layer by layer, until they reached a height of 10 feet. Hold on a second. Can't forget to use the handsaw to cut out the openings for the door and windows. The whole process went off without a hitch. It was a pure showdown between raw timber and human calories. There's an old saying: in the mountains, the days pass easily, while the world outside rushes by. Those few seconds of time-lapse you see, that was 6 months of Sean's life. With his stomach growling, he decided it was time to find some protein. Nutritious start. Sean ate until he was stuffed, declaring that today was going to be a big day. He knew he'd be working at height, and his old folding ladder just wasn't going to cut it anymore. So, Sean built a new one, a sturdier, better-looking upgrade that even the toughest critic couldn't find fault with. Continuing upward, he reached the location of the bedroom loft. Even though it's just a place to sleep, Sean didn't cut any corners. The 5 massive support beams are thicker than his waist, strong enough to hold up no matter what. As the triangular A-frames were raised, the construction of the second-floor gable walls began. Shorter and shorter logs were stacked, secured with massive spikes along the way. Using the same method on the back wall, it rose quickly. Then he trimmed the excess wood to match the angle of the rafters, completing the main wall structure. The material for the upstairs floorboards was top-notch, every piece looking solid as a rock. But Sean, ever the perfectionist, wanted more security. He chiseled a notch into the main floor beam and installed a massive center post. This ingenious design not only supports the weight of the second floor, but also holds up the main ridge beam for the roof. A brilliant 2-for-1 solution. While the progress might look fast, the meticulous Sean never forgot his standards. He constantly used a level to check his work, ensuring the cabin was built with integrity from the ground up. Next, he carved a tenon at the top of the center post, adding a support plate to create a connection point for the 2 main rafters. Once they were hoisted into place, he skipped the purlins and went straight to laying the roof deck. The sheathing was made from 1.5-inch thick solid wood planks. He laid down 2 overlapping layers to cover the seams. An extravagant move like this is only possible when you have, like Sean, thousands of acres of natural timber at your disposal. Anyone else wouldn't dare. During this time, he didn't forget to install the custom-made picture window and add thick planks for railings. As the final board was slotted into the roof, the exquisite structure of the cabin was finally revealed. But if you thought the roofing job was done, you'd be dead wrong. Sean brought in a thick layer of waterproof membrane. Then, using a traditional technique, he charred each roofing board to a deep black. This carbonized wood not only creates a powerful shield against rain and snow, but the dark tone also adds a sense of timeless character to the cabin. As the charred wood was laid, the roof's waterproofing and aesthetic were completed at the same time. He mirrored the process on the other side, and the main cabin build was done. But before he could relax, Sean had to think about the wood stove. Given the height of the cabin and the chimney stack, the entire flue pipe would be over 10 feet long. The immediate problem was how to securely anchor this massive thing. This didn't stump Sean for a second. He measured the distance between 2 rafters, then grabbed a square timber beam. He cut it into 2 identical lengths, laid them across the rafters, and nailed them down to create a support box. This would serve as the base for the chimney support collar. His professional technique looks just like a seasoned HVAC installer setting up an AC unit. Throughout the process, the ever-cautious Sean used his level to ensure everything was perfectly straight. Next, based on the pipe's diameter, he drew a circle on the roof deck. He drilled a few pilot holes from inside, then went back on the roof to cut out a perfectly sized opening. After that, it was just a matter of inserting the chimney sections one by one up through the support collar. You have to admit, the final result looks clean and professional. Before bringing in the beloved fireplace, he quickly finished laying the charred roof boards. The roof ridge is the hardest part to waterproof. Sean charred another set of boards, nailing them over the peak like flashing, then sealed the seam with a waterproof sealant. With that, the exterior of the cabin was finally complete. Just then, a wintry mix of rain and snow began to fall. There was no time to rest. As the temperature dropped, installing the wood stove became urgent. But Sean, a man of standards, refused to just place the stove on the dirt floor. He framed out an area with logs, filling it with large rocks and sand. Meanwhile, before the deep snows buried everything, he gathered as much green moss as he could find, using it to stuff the gaps between the wall logs. Before he knew it, it was lunchtime. Running on empty, Sean had to stop and refuel. He heated up yesterday's leftover tomato and potato stew over the fire. For his main course, a piece of baguette as hard as a rock. If you've ever had one, you know the drill. After a slight sour taste, it's an all-out battle of attrition with your jaw. But the good thing is there are no weird additives on the ingredient list. It's not just filling, it's healthy. After refueling, he returned to the worksite. He compacted the rock and sand base, then laid a layer of wild cement he sourced nearby. In this weather, there's no need to add water. You can just shovel it up and use it. He took care to pick out the dead leaves and twigs, then used a rake to level the clay. After that, Sean somehow got his hands on a load of beautiful flagstones. Though some were chipped, a man with an artistic eye like Sean could polish and arrange them into a beautiful hearth. As the post-snow temperatures continued to plummet, there was no time to finish the stonework puzzle. Survival came first. He brought in the wood stove. Following the instructions, he assembled the parts, connecting it seamlessly to even place a pan on the flat top, using it as a cooktop. No more having to cook in the pouring rain. Next up, a moment some of you have been asking about. He picked a spot that looked just right, not too far from the cabin, but not too close either. For now, it's just for him and his dog, so the pit doesn't need to be too big. He laid down some thick, sturdy logs on either side to act as a foundation. The toilet seat itself was a custom job Sean built at home last year. From the design to the material choice, it was perfectly tailored to his size and habits. And best of all, it's foldable, making it incredibly portable. After a year of wind, sun, and most importantly, Sean's personal touch, the polished surface now has a certain weathered charm. He moved it to its new home, ready to continue its service. Considering the long winter had already arrived, an open-air toilet just wouldn't do. Sean brought in more wood. First, he built walls around the toilet base. He cut a 30-degree angle for the roofline, then framed out a sturdy structure. The roofing material was all freshly cut, square, and meticulously placed. Finally, he installed a door, and a proud, sturdy outhouse was complete. He awoke to a world blanketed in white. Knowing the long winter would demand a massive amount of firewood, Sean had to spend significant time and energy gathering and splitting logs. As the weather got colder, all outdoor projects were forced to a halt. Building the interior floor became the top priority. Thankfully, he had already prepared a stash of dry lumber ready to go. Using the center post as a reference, he divided the floor into sections and began his work. A suspended floor has many benefits. It saves you the trouble of leveling the ground and provides an excellent barrier against moisture. He used the second log up from the foundation as a reference line, nailing a ledger board around the entire perimeter to create the base frame. After measuring and marking equal spacing, he installed the joists. In the middle of his work, he dug a pit between 2 joists, building a square wooden box inside it. After backfilling the dirt, he poured water around the outside and plastered the inside of the box with a mud slurry. This not only seals the gaps, but also acts as a thermal barrier. Once dry, this would serve as his root cellar for storing food. With the joists all in place, the floor frame was complete. Now he just needed to bring in a large quantity of carbonized boards and lay them one by one to complete the floor. He paid close attention to the details, especially around the center post, cutting the boards to match its curve for a tight, seamless fit. As for the pile of moss on the ground, nothing goes to waste. He gathered it up to use. Bright, sunny afternoon, he finished the floor. At the same time, he didn't forget to build a lid for the cellar. He installed hinges and a soft leather handle, a material that won't hurt if you kick it by accident. He then placed all the food that needed cold storage inside, ensuring it would stay fresh all winter long. Next, time for a lighter task to unwind. He scooped up some of that green moss, mixed it evenly with clay, then poured in hot water to activate its adhesive properties. This high-grade wild cement is perfect for chinking the walls. He followed up with a damp towel to smooth it out. The quality of the workmanship is simply impeccable. With the interior floor done, the front porch needed an upgrade too. Otherwise, you track mud inside with every step. He dug a shallow foundation, then laid down 3 massive logs, the kind most of us couldn't afford, to create a retaining wall. He added a few more inside for support, leveled the dirt slightly, and began laying the deck boards. Once finished, the front of the cabin looked clean and tidy. With the unexpected arrival of a heavy snow, the shortcomings of the cabin's flimsy temporary door became obvious. It was drafty, and probably couldn't withstand a single swipe from a bear. First, he reinforced the original door frame, then installed a new, heavy, solid wood door. But don't go anywhere. It's not over yet. He had a lot of leftover leather from the cellar handle. Sean decided to nail it all to the back of the door. Just like that, the door's insulation and style rating went through the roof, instantly surpassing all others to take the top spot. Next, he took 2 more pieces of wood and used them to clamp the lever securely to the door, ensuring it would never come apart. As one heavy-duty insulated door was completed, somewhere across the ocean, Elon Musk gained a new fan. Time for a good dinner. Onions, green beans, carrots, celery, and green onions. The star of the show? This beautiful steak. After trimming the sinew, he gave it a quick sear in a cast iron pan. He cut it into smaller pieces, threw in all the vegetables, and in no time, a rich and savory beef and vegetable stew was ready. After dinner, a little reading, a little playtime with the dog, and a wave of drowsiness washed over him. He picked up his oil lamp and headed up to the loft. Listening to the occasional crackle from the wood stove below, the orange lamplight grew hazy. Sean closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. With the suspended floor complete, the cabin's living environment became instantly cleaner. But after a good meal, the chore of washing dishes was a headache for the neat freak Sean.
High-quality dry boards to build the cabinets. He cut the boards to the right length, first nailing one to the floor to set the depth, then another vertically to set the height. He filled in the space to create a support panel. He repeated the process at a measured distance, creating the support structure for the sink. The third support panel against the wall could be narrower. With the support structure in place, he could start on the countertop. He joined 2 long boards together in an L shape, then filled in the remaining space against the wall. The kitchen counter was starting to take shape. The details couldn't be overlooked. He used a plate to trace a curved line, cutting off the sharp corners. He then used a plane to smooth the edges, making them round and comfortable to the touch. Since he was building a full kitchen, a wall-mounted cabinet was a must, perfect for storing cups and dishes. Before tackling the sink, he dealt with the space under the counter, dividing it with boards to install drawers later. And now, the main event. Sean refused to buy a pre-made sink, stubbornly insisting on crafting one himself. After all, the sheet of copper a friend had given him was about to expire if he didn't use it. He cut a square opening in the countertop, then took some well-charred boards and assembled them into a box frame to support the weight. Next, he took out the sheet of copper, cutting a piece for the sink's interior. No waste, just enough. Everyone knows how pricey this stuff is. Based on the inner dimensions of the wooden box, he cut notches around the edges of the copper sheet. He used a board to press and fold it into a 90-degree angle, then placed the insert into the wooden box to check the fit. After a few minor adjustments to make the copper and the box fit together perfectly, he took it out for the final sealing process. Without modern welding tools, Sean had to find an old-school soldering iron. He heated it in the coals until it was red hot. Using it as a heat source, he melted a stick of solder to seal the seams of the copper. The way the solder melted was incredibly satisfying to watch. Finally, he drilled a hole in the bottom of the copper basin and installed the drain, completing the kitchen sink. He poured in some water to test his work. The leftover copper didn't go to waste. He used it as a backsplash for the kitchen counter. He bent it into a Z shape and fastened it to the wall as a protective shield. The smooth surface isn't just beautiful, it's also incredibly easy to clean. When it gets dirty, a simple wipe makes it look brand new. Next, he assembled a backboard for the faucet, attaching the seriously heavy-duty hand pump. He connected the pipe to a water bucket, and just like that, he could relive the old days of pumping water from a well. Finally, playing with his dog. A moment of pure, simple contentment. After spending so many days working inside, Sean decided to take a trip outdoors and gather some local, wild ingredients. He found a healthy-looking maple tree, drilled a simple hole in the trunk, inserted a tap, and hung a bucket to catch the sap, enjoying the gentle drip, drip, drip sound. While the sap was collecting, he built a fire pit by the door with large stones. He took a dry piece of firewood and shaved off some fine tinder. Before the wood shavings could absorb any moisture from the air, he struck a fire starter, and they instantly burst into flame. He fed the fire and warmed himself for a bit. By late afternoon, it was time to harvest. The small bucket hanging on the tree was already holding a good amount of liquid. But you can't just drink it straight. This is the raw material, and too much could upset your stomach. To enjoy it safely, it needs to be processed. He set a large pan over the fire pit, filtered the collected maple sap, and poured it all in. Once it came to a boil, he immediately poured a cup. It was slightly sweet and incredibly refreshing. You have to admit, this stuff tastes way better than birch tea or dandelion coffee. It was delicious, but there was a lot of it. So, Sean filtered the sap one more time and transferred it indoors, letting it simmer slowly on the wood stove. After an entire night, the liquid in the pot had reduced to a thick, amber-colored syrup. He poured the maple syrup into sterilized glass jars for long-term storage. He could use it to sweeten his drinks or drizzle it over pancakes for an amazing breakfast. Winter turned to spring, and as the temperatures rose, cooking inside the cabin became a bit too warm. So, Sean decided to start a new project, building an outdoor kitchen to handle his daily meals. He chose a good spot nearby, used a tape measure to mark out the foundation, and began the process of digging post holes. But it's always easier said than done. After scraping away the topsoil, he hit a tangled mess of roots blocking his path. After a tough fight with a pickaxe, he dug deeper, only to be stopped by a massive boulder. Sean had to bring out the pry bar. His dog, wanting to help, jumped in, but after a few frantic digs, he was left panting, tongue hanging out. Finally, after burning a ton of time and calories, 4 16-inch deep post holes were ready. The support posts were critical. Not only did he choose logs as thick as my waist, but he also charred the ends that would go into the ground. Finally, he backfilled the holes with concrete, creating unshakable pillars that should easily stand for 100 years. Simple pulley system to make lifting the heavy logs a bit easier. With the main frame established, he got creative. He took 2 logs of different lengths, drilled holes through them, and inserted wooden pegs to create a hinge-like structure. He mounted these on the crossbeams to serve as angled supports for the ridgepole. He laid another log on top, and the overall frame of the outdoor kitchen appeared. Compared to the rock-solid posts and beams, the roof structure felt a bit flimsy. The immediate priority was to install the rafters to stabilize the whole thing. Finally, he covered the roof with fresh planks, and the rain-proof kitchen shelter was complete. The sloped roof design was not only aesthetically pleasing, but also allowed smoke to ventilate easily. Next, the work moved from the sky back down to the ground. According to Sean's design, the stove wouldn't just be for cooking. It also needed a built-in BBQ. He dug a trench, laid a foundation of cobblestones, and poured a thick layer of concrete on top. Now came the real calorie-burning part. He hauled in massive stones, each over 200 pounds, and lined them up. He built a wooden frame on top of the stones and filled it with smaller rocks and concrete, layer by layer. When he reached the right height, he paused, placing 2 different-sized hollow frames on the edges. He used boards to separate them from the main structure, placed a grill in the middle section, and continued filling the ends with concrete. After smoothing the top, he embedded 4 bolts around the preformed wooden frame, using a board to press them down to the same level. While the concrete cured, he kept working, building up the sides of the platform with more stone and concrete to create separate counters. He removed the wooden forms and fired up the stove to test it out. As the fire roared, the large central space was perfect for grilling, with enough room on the sides for 2 pots for frying or boiling. The 4 bolts on the side became the perfect stand for boiling water or making coffee. But a simple stove wasn't enough for Sean. He extended the frame outward from the posts to create a space for a large oven. Again, he started with a foundation of stone and concrete. For the walls of the oven base, Sean switched from heavy stone to lighter wood. Using a combination of full and half-split logs, he stacked them up to the right height, then laid a platform of logs on top. Next came the oven dome itself. The material needed to be both heat-resistant and insulating. Sean somehow got a large load of clay, mixed it with straw to create cob, and spread it over a wooden form, smoothing it into a beautiful oven dome. After it was shaped, durability. He used the leftover shingles on the main kitchen roof. Finally, the day came to fire the oven. He removed the wooden form from inside the dome, made a few final touches, and lit a fire to see how it worked. You have to admit, it looked fantastic. As for the kitchen floor, the ever-tidy Sean didn't cut corners. He found a long fallen tree and used a chainsaw to slice it into thick wood cookies. He laid them all across the kitchen floor, then filled the gaps with a clay slurry. The finished, grouted effect looks amazing, doesn't it?